Hi everyone, it's Emma here, and this week I am talking through the questions, why do I keep getting UTIs? So UTIs or cystitis, of course, can be quite frustrating and debilitating in themselves, even when it's just the odd one-off infection. But then when we come to scenarios where the cystitis or UTIs are recurring, that can be even more problematic, and obviously then in this situation we really want to work quite hard in order to try and determine the underlying causes, as this can help inform better treatment. So cystitis or UTIs are considered recurrent when we have at least 2 infections within 6 months, or 3 within a year, or perhaps even more frequently than this. And next I'm going to just go into a bit more detail in terms of what could be causing the cystitis, and particularly these recurrent infections, what could be going on in these situations. So technically cystitis is inflammation of the bladder, and very often the source of this inflammation is an infection. So that would be the case when it's a case of UTIs, a urinary tract infection, and this infection can occur at any point along the urinary tract, but in and around the bladder is quite common. And now we're just going to go into some of the causes in terms of what could be causing these recurrent infections. So first on my list I have not fully recovering from a previous infection. So this is something we talk about actually in all areas of health over at AVOGO. We're quite big on that recovery process and allowing that to happen, and this can be really relevant for UTIs and cystitis as well, in that the cause of the infection in many cases, which is bacteria, this bacteria might not have been completely eradicated, or that there might be a slight imbalance that's still lingering there, ready to crop up again. Or, as is the case with other types of infections as well, if there has been an infection or underlying inflammation, this can cause damage to some of your cells, some of the mucous membranes that line your urinary tract for infection. And if these have been previously damaged or not fully recovered from after an infection, then this can make these more prone to recurrent infections or secondary infections as well. So that recovery process is really important, and not to rush that recovery process. So this is where something like our uva ursinii echinacea can come in, because rather than just a course of antibiotics, which can just often be for a few days, you can take this for up to several weeks for more ongoing support. We do say obviously that if your symptoms haven't improved within 7 days, you shouldn't continue to take it in case there's something else underlying there that's not being properly managed and it's not being treated accordingly. But otherwise, this can be a nice one to take for even up to a few weeks after the current infection, just to make sure that infection is really eradicated. It combines the uva ursinii and the echinacea for immune support and that antiseptic actions as well. Number 2, I have not fully emptying the bladder. So there's a few reasons that this could be an issue and potentially an ongoing issue. So if this is simply a habit for whatever reason, there could be more likely that some concentrated urine is left lingering in the bladder. This could be down to dehydration or just the habit that you're in, and this could cause a problem in terms of causing more inflammation and the more likelihood that bacteria will thrive in the bladder. There could also be a structural reason, such as obstructions of the urethra, which makes you feel like you're not emptying your bladder fully after every time of going to the toilet. Some of the reasons there could be prolapse, such as after or during menopause in women as women get older, or something like an enlarged prostate in males. But that's just a factor to consider if you feel that your bladder isn't always completely empty after going to the loo. Next we have on the list is sex. So because In many cases, UTIs or cystitis are caused by the transfer of bacteria. Sexual practices are just one area to consider, and I've mentioned honeymoon cystitis. That's quite common for people who have had sex for the first time or for the first time in a while. It can just mean that the lining of your urethra is a bit more delicate, and that transfer of bacteria is something quite new. So the usual tips as we'll go on to explore can help, such as peeing after sex and considering which toiletries you're using as well. Next, I have diet on my list. Again, if it's quite a recurrent symptom, then we might want to think what habits are consistently there which could possibly be contributing. We know that sugar, and especially refined sources of sugar in our diet, are particularly troublesome for infections, both urinary tract infections and also the balance of bacteria in and around the gut. So really having more whole foods, as I'll go on in more detail, is helpful, but also for diabetics or people with wobbly blood glucose, or they're insulin resistant, even very mildly, that can actually mean that there's more sugar present in your urine as well, which could also potentially have an influence there. Hygiene is just one to consider. It kind of goes hand in hand with the topic of sex that we spoke about. It's not to say that poor hygiene is a factor, it's just being aware of any transfer or more likely transfers of bacteria in terms of types of underwear, and also on the other hand, going too harsh with hygiene practices in terms of introducing lots of harsh soaps and chemicals and toiletries, which could potentially cause further irritation and upset the balance of good bacteria as well, which is very protective. Next on my list, I have disruption to the gut flora and your intimate flora as well. So that goes very much hand in hand with some of the points that we've mentioned in terms of your diet, high sugar, high refined sugar, high overuse of antibacterial soaps. Soaps that are too harsh, potentially affecting your good bacteria, which gives the bad bacteria the chance to thrive. And then things like having enough prebiotics in your diet, and or the historic or recent use of antibiotics, again, could damage your good bacteria and in turn have an influence on your bad, give them the option to thrive. And finally, just we have immune function as well. So other symptoms could indicate that your immune function isn't optimal, such as recurrent cold and flu infections, or these recurrent UTIs or cystitis, because recurrent infections, your immune system is responsible for detecting and managing infections. So if they're quite recurrent, that can be a sign that your immune system is struggling to get on top of them. So just another one to consider there. So in light of all these points, I'm just going to quickly run through some tips now to help kind of address some of those key points. So my first one is to continue treatment and not cut it off too early. So we spoke about that. If you have been given antibiotics, to complete the course, to keep up with your drinking water or some cranberry juice, not just when you have an infection, but as a habit. Keep hydrated is one of the best things you can do. And then keep up your use with your echinacea and your uva ursae, and just beyond just the day or two that you might feel that you've got those symptoms, just to keep it up a bit longer. You've got the two herbs in there, the uva ursae for more direct action on the urinary tract, and the echinacea element for the immune support as well. We've talked through some of the tips you can do around sex and hygiene practices. So that would be to go to the toilet quite quickly after sex, and just to consider your toiletries and perhaps try a more natural brand as well. The diet is a really important one for me, and again, this is going to be an ongoing thing, an ongoing helpful habit that you can pick up that hopefully can help if those infections are quite recurrent. So that would be to reduce your intake of sugars, processed foods, which are often very high in refined sugars and those inflammatory ingredients, your alcohol, caffeine, all quite inflammatory, can initiate a mild stress response, which is also unhelpful for your immune responses. And instead, thinking about what you can include, lots of whole foods, nutrient rich, fibre rich, for supporting your gut bacteria, which has a very direct effect on the balance of bacteria in your urethra as well. Then we have the prebiotic and the probiotic side of things. So Mulcasan is a prebiotic, and that can help to set the correct internal environment for your gut bacteria to thrive. So I would always introduce this first before then going a step up and introducing a probiotic, such as one for women, to really help to hone in on that intimate area and support the balance of bacteria that exists there as well. Then we've got things such as underwear, just thinking about the transfer of bacteria, and on towels and things, just being a bit more conscious of potential locations of bacteria if you are particularly sensitive and you're keen to try and tick off everything that could possibly be contributing to those recurrent infections. And my final point is cranberry as well. Cranberry works well for the prevention side of things rather than treatment, but cranberry is a nice habit to keep up if you're keen to keep recurrent infections at bay, trying to ward them off before they're problematic. So you've got your Wild Mountain cranberry juice or cranberry complex in tablet form, which can be nice ones just to keep up on a more ongoing basis. Obviously, if these still aren't helping and the infections are still recurrent, be worth going to your GP. And if they find that there's not an infection that seems to be at the root of the cause, but you're still struggling with symptoms, then it could be a case of interstitial cystitis, which is another area to consider. And I can do a little link in the description to that if you wish to explore that further. So thanks everyone for listening. Please do leave your comments and any questions below, and also please do subscribe to our YouTube channel so you will be notified of any future videos. Thanks.